Identity is hard to pin down. All throughout our lives, we are shown images of people living, fighting, feeling, in books, in movies. There's such a wealth of things to consume that you'll never even hear about at all. There's so many stories to see, but if you were one of the lucky ones, you got a special privilege to engage, to play, to be part of that story, to be a gamer, a part of that world. So many worlds at that. And you don't have to decide on just one. You have so many to choose from. If you play games from a young age, there are sensations related to gaming that probably define you. The naturalness it comes to hold a controller, to know the conventions of a genre just by seeing it for a moment, to know what inspired what, to connect with another person just from the fidgeting of fingertips, to get excited at the new game smell and the crack of a game case, to cry at a journey's end, and when your heart feels like it explodes, when a game you waited years for finally gets a release. Hey everybody, have you heard of this new game called OMORI? It just came out. It's totally horror adorable, and it's a horror RPG. Well, I guess that goes without saying if it's horror adorable. It's the perfect holiday gift. These devs seem to really be talking our language. Psychological horror, exploring your emotions. Oh look, it even has a trigger warning. Oh snap, better than Cyberpunk. Look, it says it has an epilepsy warning. I haven't been trying to spoil myself too much, so I don't know too much about the game. But there's been a lot of people waiting for it for a long time. It's like some people's Half-Life 3, except it's not a sequel or anything. It got kickstarted a long time ago. But there's so many indie games coming out all the time. It totally has slipped our mind. But what was the creator? Omo Cat? Omo Cat is like a brand, but it's also in 2020. Our more potty-trained contemporaries have made a considerable effort to let any gamer, or game enthusiast know how the gamer identity is a tool of corporate interest. That the passion you have for games and the passion of the people who make games are distorted and used to excuse so many types of abuse. Sexual abuse, crunch, simulated gambling, manipulative pay structures, even companies spitting in the face of game preservation. Re-releasing beloved games from a franchise for a limited time, and trying even harder to stomp out any who try to play some of their historic games that define a generation, a culture, when they just won't release it themselves because they haven't found a way to pivot it to make the most money ever. 2020 was fucked. A lot of folks are a lot less disillusioned now, which is good, but even the best of us know there's still much more work to do. But the catch-22 is, the passion that leads one to love video games enough to fight for a better industry is still a love likely baked in nostalgia and heavily exploitable. And upsettingly, it reminds me of something we've mentioned in streams but never mentioned on this channel. The fact that we're an addict. We feel a lot less shame at it these days, especially with folks like Jim Sterling talking about their struggles with addictive behavior. In fact, their video about a gaming addiction a while back really moved us. It made us feel seen at a time when gaming addiction being recognized was being shouted down by gamers, reacting with the fervor we tended to associate with arguments about video game violence. But we also understand why so many people were defensive, and we understand as an addict. The whole time I grew up, I remember so many folks being all like, you shouldn't game so much. But even at the times that I gamed less, I even went a year without gaming as a kid, it was still a problem. It felt like people were always waiting for me to grow out of video games. Like, they expected me to grow out of toys. Which I didn't. It was a bit embarrassing to get scolded for gaming after being a certain age, as if I was getting caught with wet sheets or something. It was often framed as a personal failure. So many folks have been told that it was weird that they liked games so much, and a lot of people wouldn't have survived their childhood without the games they had. They help a great many cope. And to tell the truth, there are way more people addicted to games than will ever probably admit it. Something so integral to your entire being can't be bad. No. If so, what does that mean for you? Suddenly, all the folks who tried to say video games were bad suddenly had new ammo to take them away from you, or make them not as good. And for someone whose whole life revolves around video game releases, well, that's frightening. But video games have been there for a lot of people when no one else was. And I can't deny that. And I think as a gamer, I'm really hurt that something so important to me can be filled with so much toxic shit from so many sides. Before we wrote essays, we were much gamer. On our channel before Fluffbyte, I did unboxings, reviews, and anime convention coverage. I wanted to be a video game journalist really badly, and so I did the best I could, and I hoped I would get noticed. All I got was a lot of views. And I wanted to do it less and less as I saw the wave of disdain media outlets were getting for being in the pockets of major publishers. Too much water. And looking back, we were miserable. I wanted my voice to be important, but I didn't have much to say. I mean, I wanted to be able to get like free copies of games when they released one day. And so I was swallowed in the hype. Because the hype train isn't supposed to stop. All we ultimately did was be free advertisement. This was before we were a leftist. Even before coming out as trans. And I thought that emptiness I felt at making content that was advertiser friendly and didn't really contribute much to conversations was something wrong with my worth as a person and as a creator. I was feeling the inklings of what so many folks have said this year about gaming and commodified identity.
And it's all about comfort. It's all about wanting to enjoy your games in an echo chamber where you don't have to think about anything other than feeling powerful. This is exactly how game publishers like it, of course. Oh yeah, they'll give you your power fantasies. So long as you do acknowledge, of course, that any power you have here is a fantasy.
Yet, the anger at Nintendo and the criticism of their business practices seem to have subsided, only being vaguely uttered as pleads for them to not do it again in the future. Because we have now gotten what we wanted, and we will buy it, no matter what. We have seen some people ask why Nintendo is doing this, thinking it doesn't make any sense. And the answer is quite simple. We are letting them. Super Mario 3D All-Stars became the second best-selling game of the year before it was even released.
No, I know. OMORI is just another one of these games in a long line of Earthbound, Yuminiki-like RPG Maker games. I mean, I've already praised a few of those this year. And you know I'm a slut for them. But you know I'm a slut for them because they're good. I mean, it's been in dev hell for a long time, so it has to be good, right? Although I guess, even with Cyberpunk taking 10 years, it still had crunch, so that doesn't actually mean anything. Is it weird this game is made by a clothing company? This looks sad. It feels kind of right that a game like this would be made. Like Omo Cat has clothes of like, it has like Doki Doki Literature Club stuff on it, or like so many other I guess like brand deals, I guess, because I used to thought they were indie, but I guess they got really big, like really big. And only like 8 or so people, oh, like 10, about like 10 people made this game. The company is so big, I wonder why I didn't just hire more people. Fast forward to now, and not only am I making content I really want to be doing and saying what I want to say, but I'm still scared. Every time we make an ambitious video, we get worried about what others will say. So historically, we've tried to fill our essays with maybe not all positive feelings, but we do strive to leave an optimistic message and not create from only a place of anger. And that's no different now, but I can't say I know this essay will end on a positive note. I realized recently, maybe not so surprisingly, that my intention to play mostly indie games in order to engage less with the shitty AAA game industry only goes so far. Maybe like when you try not to support a company and switch products only to find the one you switch to is a subsidiary of the one you were trying not to support. Recently, the whole clusterfuck that was Cyberpunk 2077 validated many who had no faith in a corporate Cyberpunk game. And there's been yet another smoking gun to how exploitive and callous the companies that own the industry are. From the industry standard crunch to the intentional epileptic seizure-causing lights and trans fetishization, such a long-awaited game being such a symbol for corruption and everything wrong with the game industry was very in line with the general tude of 2020. Whoa, OMORI has been in development for 6 years? Wow, that's a long time. I heard a lot of folks who kickstarted were unhappy with the frequency of updates. They're probably just too overwhelmed to do updates. You know, they're just like it's like a small team, you know? I mean, even we have a lot of trouble updating our own stuff on Patreon and stuff. We know how it is. Why, I remember when I was waiting for Indivisible to come out, the devs would post so much. It was actually annoying. Like every single little monster design and stuff. And it was just like, where's the meat? Just like, it was like that for a while, but then it was also times where it was just like nothing for a while. And you think you want a lot of updates, but I don't know. I get the frustration, but it's way harder to make a video game than most people give it credit for. People should be easier on indie devs. And if anyone was keeping score, I wouldn't feel all too above anyone else, even if I had no interest in buying Cyberpunk. We know a few folks who have gotten shit from leftists for buying the game. We even knew someone who thought we wouldn't talk to them for playing it. Having a staunch stance against media made through exploitative means can work beautifully easy for some, as far as they know. Companies are exploitative and individuals can be abusers, transphobic, or worse. But ultimately, as gamers seeped in this culture from childhood, there's usually one or two series that you just can't not get. I mean, you've been waiting so long. It's hard-coded into you somehow.
And among my many non-chemical vices is a workaholism issue that sees me pour a dangerous, unhealthy amount of my self-esteem and sense of identity to the quality and success of the work I put out there. And in many cases, such as mine, there are deeper psychological issues which addictive behaviour is used to cope with. My doctor, for example, cited hypomanic depression as a root cause for my abuse of drugs, a story all too common for too many people. Societal misunderstanding regarding addiction can compound the problem, but there are hundreds of thousands of businesses out there that do understand the power of addictive behavior all too well and use that understanding to make money.
And just like when we saw that Jim Sterling vid again recently, I'm reminded of all the Steam, PSN, and Switch sales on all the time. All the flashing lights telling you to buy. I've seen folks on Twitter posting screenshots of their Steam carts, seen creators telling their followers what games to buy because the holiday sales everywhere and they want to promote their faves. And of course, I mean, people drowning in choice for just a sheer amount of shit to still be hyped up. New Smash Brothers character, new Tweenie game. Everywhere I look, there's something. And there's so many folks can't help themselves with filling their carts up during sales. Filling our hollow parts up. And a lot of people aren't questioning that thinking. And so many folks can't help themselves with sales, new games from their childhood. And most don't have the resources to manage that itch, let alone know that that itch isn't normal. We've all been pretty thoroughly conditioned. We had a convo recently with a friend of ours about wage slavery, and how a person can't even be open about their job sucking. Not only do you have to work, but your boss also buys your state of mind. You have to pretend to be happy. Even outside of retail, the do it with a smile and this job is your family mentality is ingrained in you, and you basically have to be very agreeable against your will. I described it as brainwashing. My friend said brainwashing would be less severe, that the mentality is forcing you to conform to it. And capitalism has no shortage of mechanisms. And capitalism has no shortage of mechanisms like that. But within gaming, buying games and their related works is the main form of expression, and it's much easier to conform to. It keeps one's identity intact. I'm a passionate gamer. I love gaming. This game is so important, so poetic, so good. I must. Only other gamers would understand. It keeps one's identity intact, safe and valid. I do want to mention, since we're talking about emotionally challenging games people are mad at, The Last of Us 2 winning at the Video Game Awards is kind of like so bittersweet for me, because on one hand, it's a validation of crunch culture. It's a validation of crunch culture, but The Last of Us 2 is one of our favorite games this year. And I'm doing my best not to judge folks for their gaming, you know? Because, like, you know, people who play Red Dead 2 or Cyberpunk, you know, they're not bad people. The people who made the game aren't bad people. Just the companies. And the last few years have been filled with a lot of good nostalgia. There's been a lot of great games I never thought would be, like, made. Resident Evil remakes, Kingdom Hearts 3. As disappointing as that was. There's a new Bravely next year, and I never thought I'd love Animal Crossing again, but 2020. And fuck, Final Fantasy VII still was about like environmental terrorism. And Barrett wasn't a stereotype, which was pretty cool. So, gaming hipsters who are also leftists can generally feel like they aren't supporting shitty companies. Some folks' nostalgia has been laden with things that they feel are ruined now. Or maybe the things they like are so niche that the games they get into are generally made by only a handful of people. Even if a dev turns out to be a turf or something, at least the gamer didn't give money to a shitty company that crunched everyone that worked on it. Reducing harm under capitalism is often a losing battle. And we can't ignore the plethora of games that are indie but don't push against the general flow of the mainstream game industry. But at the same time, I'm sure it's hard to push back as a small creator. Like when the devs of Oblets took an Epic Store game exclusivity deal and got harassed by gamers. Most small game devs don't make that much. But even with creative freedom and even going multi-platform, success isn't guaranteed, even for a good game. So the fact that more and more projects that are produced under indie conditions and or have the expected aesthetic of an indie game are being published by big companies is a sign that indie games aren't immune to the recuperation of capitalism. Even in situations where the hierarchy is less clear, sometimes the behavior of a dev and the behavior of a publisher is kind of seen as one and the same when it isn't. It can be difficult to know what behavior is from the dev or what behavior is from the publisher.
OMORI the Game is under contract by a mother company called Omo Cat, which is the clothing line for pop culture clothing. The first problem is how the game is telling little to no publicity. If you go on Omo Cat website, there's little to no advertising for the game they are making. OMORI even has a website, but the parent company doesn't have any link to their own game. And Omo Cat isn't a small company. Some of their clients seem to be very reputable, and the clothing line also seems to be doing pretty well with all the new releases and collabs. So why would a company with a game that could potentially shake the RPG world not advertise it one single bit?
OMORI, from what we've seen, is very much what we want in a game. You might expect me to be immune to the nostalgia factor since I learned of it so late in its development life. How can I miss out on a game like this? It could be the next Undertale just waiting to happen. So adorable. Despite a wait that made folks think the game wasn't even going to come out, as I speak, people are playing it right now. Backers had Steam keys starting today. And in less than an hour from me speaking this into a microphone, the game will be released. This past week, the official Twitter for the game has been doing countdown tweets, and the style and mystery of the ad campaign is quite alluring. Each day of the countdown has been like being part of an event. But the thing that made it the feature of this essay, and something important enough to do an essay on such short notice, were these tweets that kept breaking that feeling of hype that kept building inside me when I looked at the game. 7 days left. Casual reminder that the people who made this game have been ignoring replies and messages regarding the $200K of funds they collected from those who backed the Kickstarter for years now, even to this day. They were supposed to start issuing refunds to people within 2 weeks of when you contacted them via Kickstarter, but I don't know if anyone has received theirs yet. The 2-week period for me ended yesterday, so I'm not holding my breath. I'm still seeing messages that many have not received refunds as well. Even those who backed literal hundreds plus, they haven't gotten any replies. Can't say I'm surprised, though it would have been decent of them. My $50 drop in the bucket compared to people who are still asking to increase pledges or make new ones, so I thought maybe, but wasn't really expecting it. Oh my god, yeah, I remember this controversy, though not many people talk about it for some reason. Many people suspected that the $200K went to the parent company for their clothing line or something like that. Doesn't help with the fact that the OMORI game kept getting delayed with false news and a ton of info not coming from the devs. I remember the hype back then, kinda sad looking at it now, but I do hope the game does well when it does officially come out. 6 days left. Once again, I'm asking the OMORI team to do the bare minimum in response to the people that gave them 200+ K years ago for this game, rather than continue to ignore them. That'd be cool. Since I'm already getting a few of the "that's Omo Cat, not OMORI," I am aware. Tweets cannot be edited. OMORI staff was meant to be paid with the initial funds, 200K, and I feel for the employees. You can support the employees without supporting Omo Cat's OMORI. Just saying. 5 days left. It's cool how OMORI first shows its horror element within its own Kickstarter. For the price of anywhere from $1 to $1,000, you can experience being ghosted by Omo Cat with no feasible way to receive your rewards or money back. for 5+ years. Very cool. Unique. I don't get asking for a refund now that the game is about to come out. Yes, games take a while to make. You guys should have known that before investing. It's just funny people wanting refunds and they'll probably rebuy the game at a later time because it's great. 3 days left. In this game, you play as Omori living in white space. You've lived in white space ever since you've used your mom's credit card to become a super backer on Omo Cat's Kickstarter. After years of no replies from Omo Cat, you set off with your backer friends to get your promised refund. On a serious note though, please encourage Omo Cat to respond to the plenty of backers that have been left on red for years. Awaiting refunds and replies Omo Cat is never made good on. Even people that poured literal hundreds of monies into Omo Cat's vision are being blatantly ignored. Wait, what happened? Forgive my ignorance. Too long didn't read as there have been a few reasons why many backers have felt uncomfortable supporting Omori for the past few years. There are promises of refunds both years ago and as early as a month ago, but many backers did not receive one, and the private messages have been ignored. Whoa, I didn't expect that. That's unfortunate. Something should be done. I'm sorry y'all had this happen to you. I appreciate you care. It's very sad, especially since I believe I speak for many when I say those who backed the Kickstarter were big fans. I'm a huge Omo Cat, so this upsets me. I haven't been supporting the game with money, but I have a ton of her clothing. Honestly, so do I. There's nothing wrong with keeping or wearing what you have if you feel bad. If Omo Cat refunds the people who have asked for it, I would personally be open to purchasing them again. Unfortunately, in the meantime, I can't consider it. I will say congrats to the team for finally busting out a message about when they plan on delivering the game. Pretty close to the finish line, but for people excited, this is good news. Now just refunds. Please? Answer the Kickstarter messages. Nice to see you here again. Nice to see I'm being remembered. Glad to find you addressing Omo Cat now too. 2 days left. No official price has been set besides the Kickstarter exclusive purchase of the game, which is $15. Generally, Kickstarter's prices are cheaper than normal prices, so people are guessing around 20. I feel kinda tired today, so I haven't thought of a new witty way to say, "Oh my cat, please process the refunds you've been promising for years." If anyone has some cool ideas on how to say, please stop ignoring the people that made this game possible in a totally tubular way, please comment.
Tubular, you say? I have a YouTubular way to do it. Admittedly, I'm not good for much else.
There was a lot of pushback to these tweets, but they were determined ass tweets. Thing is, we immediately got curious about it and wanted to substantiate what she was saying about the game's Kickstarter. There were a lot of folks frustrated with the devs, as one might expect. Omori has gained a reputation for its massive delay with very few details, on par with Yandere Dev for some. When I saw Let's Plays from backers of the game, I sighed a relief a little. That's like a fair amount of showing it off, right?
Update almost there. What does that mean? How far are they? Are they a month away? A week away? 3 months away? Or is that another year or 2 years?
And of course it still bugged me. On one hand, we've been told as a content creator that updating your audience is good and the worst creators go long times without doing updates. But as a disabled solo creator, or solo-ish, we have all too well learned how exhausting it can be to give updates, especially at times when your progress is minute and you're ashamed of making a post just to say, I didn't do anything yet. But as true as that could be, one of the devs mentioned to backers that
Apparently, the contract barred the development team from posting any announcements or updates without the permission of the parent company Omo Cat. The developers and the team have been working 8 or more hours a day making music, sprites, hand-drawn assets, and much more. And apparently, the game is even more beautiful than ever. If this is true, then the parent company Omo Cat has been at fault for releasing little to no information about the game, and maybe even responsible for the countless amount of hours put into that work.
Respect to Arkia for making this, little updates here and there when she actually contacted us a bunch of times. Not that she contacted us. Someone contacted her and she answered.
the game wasn't crunch. A game like Cyberpunk had a lot of attention on its practices, but Omori is a niche game that coverage for has been sparse, especially because it's been in development hell. Though it has grown lately with the subtle hype it's built back up recently with its release date so fast approaching. We're disappointed that it didn't seem to catch the interest of anyone critical of shitty video game industry practices. People were just skeptical on whether it will release or not. And so I knew I had to say something about it. Do something only I could do, I guess.
Doing something only I can do. Sounds such like a lie. I'm not the only person who can crunch themselves to follow the algorithm just because the game just dropped today. And if I don't let people know about the abusive development practices, then I'll feel too guilty to play the game myself.
Crowdfunding like Kickstarter makes one feel that you're supporting a very small group. And it's a very romantic image, especially for gamers who've been conditioned to expect greatness from one or two people. The success of games like Undertale or Iconoclast have set a standard of expectation of indie auteurs. Making masterpieces with little resources and a dream. And sometimes that still happens. But even the Kickstarters of stuff like Bloodstained or Shenmue 3 boasts a similar perceived authenticity. Oh, these companies didn't let these amazing devs do what they wanted, so give them money directly and the new generation of gaming history can be born. A lot of folks have faith in cult series getting revived, especially since many amazing games never satisfy sale records enough to get anything but spiritual successors from fans of the original. Or maybe an official new iteration gets announced, but only after it seems the publisher all but starved out fans who have been begging for more entries in a series for years. Hyper fans of particular games, especially niche ones, say stuff all the time like, if only they made a new good Silent Hill game, it would just print money. And I think if it's normal for gamers to be begging companies to have money thrown at them, I think we've reached a point that questioning our behavior would be pretty pog. Earthbound likes, and then Yume Nikki likes, have made a game of telephone nostalgia. Now even folks who've only played NES or Lucas and Smash have felt the influence of Earthbound, because of an art movement of games exists and continues to persist because of it. Undertale carried that torch and set a new bar for what a small creator could achieve, and, in turn, started its own movement. And so games that look like OMORI and strive for that surreal, horror-adorable, emotional exploration that so many of us depressed as fuck-ass gamers cannot get enough of immediately resonates. In its aesthetic, its music, its themes, and it seems primed to make a big effect on gamers, myself included. OMORI's development team is small, but they do have a publisher that's pretty big. They're landlord of sorts, and they get to dictate the path of the development. I didn't expect any of the devs to speak out and say 56+ hour work weeks were something they had a problem with, and I expect most folks to just assume that a self-imposed workload is the cause, because it's an indie game, and indie creators are passionate. The lack of communication with backers and the silence on the status of refunds for years seems sus by itself, and coupled with the lack of general updates despite it seeming as though updates were theoretically possible, makes me really uneasy. I feel conditioned to hope that the game will be amazing, that it will emotionally touch me and change my life, reorder my priorities. And I guess, in the end, that's what I expect of so many games, to remind me of why I fell in love with games in the first place. Which, if you tweak the language a bit, sounds a lot like drug abuse. I want to think that if it's great, maybe it's worth it. That seems to be the yadad of gamers. But whether it's broken like Cyberpunk, or a game that everyone ends up needing to play, it's not okay for crunch to continue. And it's not okay for people to not get refunds in a situation where everything had gone dark. And I think gaming culture predisposed gamers interested in the game to
desire the product above all else. After all, I want my game, I pay for my game, I should get my game.
We worked so hard on this. That was always a badge of honor in articles talking about the latest game that took years to make, that at the end, everyone was sleeping in the office to finish. Conditioned to think that's a good thing. And I'd like to think people interested in a game like this would be compassionate. And even if the game makes record sales, I'm pretty sure that'll all go to Omo Cat. The devs won't see a penny of that success. Shit, devs need a union. Everybody, this year has been hard as shit. I played more games this year than I thought I'd ever had the executive function to, and a lot of amazing games really gave me some perspective. Making my own essays felt weird, separate from the other bites, but I didn't feel included in the system for a while until I got my Sona and our content. Since we've been doing essays and streaming, I feel like I was just along for the ride. And then when we got this model, I'm like, oh snap. Oh no, Punk should totally get the model. And it's like, no, it's Drizzle. And it's like, the rest of our system, the rest of my system totally gave me way more of a voice than I ever thought. And it's hard because sometimes all our thoughts are just speaking over each other. But some cool stuff has happened this year, like technically being self-employed is something. We fell in love with the genre that we used to write off, played a bunch of games off our bucket list. We started doing something we felt meaningful and was part of our passion. And the end of the year didn't pull any punches, but I'm glad that I survived it, I guess. I don't want to say I'm better for it, because pain doesn't automatically mean that you're elevated emotionally or something. But I mean, I guess I have hope for the future. But it kind of sucks because I think about my addiction sometimes, and it's like, well, I'm probably addicted to video games too. Like, we have so many positive emotions attached to video games that it's like ridiculous, especially this year. All my friends game now in some capacity. My job is basically video games and talking about video games. Some of my favorite memories this year have involved video games. And if they haven't involved video games directly, they've involved them tangentially. I want to make more. Games are pog. But even for folks who want the industry to change, we're in a web kind of, because, you know, like, people buy games because we play them, because we talk about them. When you see a thing and you want it, it's like, ooh, cool. You know, I mean, that's how we find like most of the indie games that we end up playing, because we hear other people talking about them, other creators. After all, the thing most likely for someone watching this is that they'll buy the game. The game pivoted to attract a certain kind of person. Someone who feels lost and alone, buried in their pain. A game someone might need on Christmas Day. And one that reinforces a trend that hurts and exploits gamers and devs and tries to convince us that that's the only way things can be. And it's not. Hello everyone. OMORI finally releases today. I want to thank everyone who has been so very patient with us. It has been a long time since our project was announced. Almost 6.5 years. 5.5 years past its first release date. Through it all, I've carried a lot of pain and guilt with me. I felt like I disappointed so many people, and that I failed everyone. I struggled with it every night. There was so much pressure. There were so many hurtful accusations that I wanted to disprove. But instead of confronting them, I made the choice to bury myself in the game. I felt that that was what I needed to do so that I could focus. Because above everything, I wanted to protect this game's vision, and I wanted this game to be good. OMORI is something I couldn't have done on my own. The entire team helped make it what it is. Not just with the work, and there was a lot, but with supporting me and believing in me as well. I am so humbled and grateful for everyone who's seen this through to the end. There is so much love and effort put into this game, and I felt a great responsibility to make sure that the final game would reflect that, and now I think it does. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Not just from me, but from the team. Fans have grown up waiting for this game. Some of us on the team have grown up working on it, and now it's finally here. There's still a lot of work ahead. We need to finish the localizations, port OMORI to console, make the inevitable patches that come with release, distribute our remaining backer rewards, finish the walkthrough and art book, and more. But it's all worth it, because we can finally share the game with you. We are ecstatic to finally bring you this experience that means so much to us. We hope that it will be fun. We hope that you'll feel our love. We hope that it will be engaging and unique. And above all, we hope that it leaves an impression. Omo Cat.
Hello there, Fluffbyte. New and old alike, merry and malnourished, happy and sad. This was quite an essay, as this was quite a year. I would like to thank our wonderful patrons, Joystick, Sammy, Valued Customer, Tinlufu, and I'm a Dumb Baby. Something about Omo Cat's statement really got to me. Maybe it's as a content creator, and maybe it's just because I want a parasocial relationship that makes me not feel so bad about making such a negative video. That's sure to get at least someone riled up. But you do the best that you can, And I felt like if I didn't do this essay and I played this game, I would hate myself. So here it is. Merry Christmas, everybody. See you next year.